The night my husband left for his weekend retreat became far more significant than I expected, not because anything dramatic occurred, but because it quietly exposed emotions I had been ignoring for a long time. As the sun lowered itself behind the city skyline and washed our townhouse in soft amber light, I stood by the window listening to the distant traffic and realizing how still the house felt without David. His familiar movements and voice, his words from earlier that afternoon, replayed in my mind the way he had kissed my cheek and asked me to look after his nephew, William, to make sure he felt welcome and supported while he adjusted to life in the city. William, only 19 and freshly out of high school, was standing on the uncertain edge between adolescence and adulthood, carrying both excitement and anxiety about college. When he came downstairs that evening with a hesitant smile and an easy politeness that reminded me how young and unsure he truly was, I felt a sense of responsibility settle over me alongside a quiet compassion. I suggested we make dinner together, something simple, and as we moved around the kitchen chopping vegetables and stirring sauce, the ordinary rhythm of the task created a surprising sense of calm. Conversation flowed naturally as he talked about his hopes for college, his fears about fitting in, and his admiration for David. I found myself listening closely, realizing how rarely anyone asked me how I was feeling anymore, how often my own thoughts went unheard. Yet I reminded myself that this was not about me, but about being a steady adult presence for someone who needed guidance. Later, as we sat in the living room with the lights low and the evening stretching quietly around us, the absence of my husband felt heavier than usual, highlighting how disconnected I had been feeling within my own life. When William spoke openly about feeling invisible at times, it stirred something deep inside me, a recognition of that same uncertainty I had once felt and perhaps still did. It forced me to confront an uncomfortable truth about how easy it is to mistake emotional honesty for something more if you are not careful. Vulnerability has a way of creating closeness that can feel intoxicating, even when it is entirely innocent. As the night grew quieter, I noticed my thoughts wandering toward questions I had been avoiding for years about aging, about whether my marriage had slipped into routine, about whether I had allowed myself to become invisible in my own home. When I finally went upstairs, my restlessness was driven by an aching need for clarity. In a brief, careful conversation later that night, William spoke again about feeling alone, and I responded not as a woman seeking excitement, but as an adult recognizing the importance of boundaries. I chose to ground myself in responsibility, to listen without encouraging dependence, to offer reassurance without creating confusion. By the time morning arrived, I felt both relieved and unsettled. Relieved that nothing irreversible had happened, unsettled because the night had revealed how much I had been suppressing. As I poured coffee, there was a quiet understanding that the previous evening had been about emotional honesty rather than forbidden excitement. That understanding stayed with me, pushing me to reflect on my marriage and the distance that had crept in. I understood that silence and avoidance were far more dangerous than honesty, and that if I wanted peace instead of regret, I would need to face my feelings directly. The night had taught me that emotional needs do not disappear just because we ignore them, and that integrity is tested in moments of quiet temptation when the choices we make shape the people we become.